This is Rachel Dolezal, and I just wanted to let you know that my book, In Full Color, has been selected for the Amazon Kindle monthly deal for March. So pick this up on Kindle for $4.99 throughout March. And you can also get a signed copy of the hardcover book at my website, racheldolezal.com. I will personalize a little message to you and autograph it and send it on its way. So it's at retail price, $24.99 on my website, signed, or on Kindle, you can get it for $4.99.
This is Mario Andretti, and you're listening to Fascination Street podcast.
I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with Sevier Crespo. Sevier is an actor and producer. He has produced or had a hand in producing over 25 projects. He has several in the works, 3 or 4 that are going to come out this year, 2 or 3 that are going to come out next year. And in this episode, he breaks down the difference between a producer, executive producer, line producer, a consulting producer, all the producers. We talk about what the hell all those words mean. We talk about some of the things that he has been involved with, some of the people who have helped him along the way, and some of the things that he has learned from those people. He gives some really good tips about being a producer and staying in the moment, and when to count your blessings and when to count your chickens. Keep an eye out for the film Karen, starring Taryn Manning, which was produced by Sevier, among others, which should be available just about everywhere right around the time you're hearing this. He has another couple of films coming out, 777, Subversion, and Waterboys with a Z. Make sure you keep an eye out for these things. Sevier Crespo, he is also an actor. He's been in a ton of stuff. But mainly this particular episode, we focused on his producing and what all that entails, what all that means, and why he does it. And this is my conversation with producer Sevier Crespo.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Welcome to Fascination Street podcast, Sevier Crespo. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, man. How's it going?
I cannot complain.
Good.
Sevier, what I like to do is I like to get the guest right from the beginning so that we understand how you got from where you were to where you are. And the way we do that is to start from scratch, man. Where were you born and raised? Where'd you grow up?
All right. Well, I was born in Puerto Rico, Mayagüez. I was raised in San Juan, Carolina, which is the suburbs of Puerto Rico and San Juan. It's almost like Hollywood to Los Angeles type thing. From there, we moved. My father was working in the military. So we moved to Dallas, Texas, which was, an interesting shift. I grew up there and that was home till, I left for California.
So you grew up in Dallas?
Yes.
What is it like coming from Puerto Rico to Dallas and seeing the crazy Dallas Cowboy fans?
It's funny. I had never seen football. I never knew what it was or anything. And then when I moved, it was different all around. And I just remember at that time, I think it was like falling in love with like Joe Montana and the 49ers and Jerry Rice. And I'm never going to forget, I was invited when I was still in maybe the 7th grade or something. And I went to my first football game and I was rooting for the 49ers until I realized, my buddy's like, yeah, probably not a good idea. And people are raging. And I was like, should I be scared to go to the bathroom? I'm tiny enough as it is. I was even smaller back then. So it was something to see. And, I ended up kind of embracing it because now I'm a massive Texas Longhorns fan. I've taken on the culture.
That's awesome. So growing up in Puerto Rico, I had to imagine that you were, especially since you really were not into American football, were you into baseball at all?
Of course.
Of course.
It's in my DNA. Of course. I mean, I played it since I could hold a bat, probably even prior. Baseball has been my life. I am a Yankee fan and have been since I could probably talk. Half my family's Yankee, half my family's Mets. So that's interesting.
That's awesome. I have to imagine Puerto Rico and basketball is like hockey in Canada.
Yes. You mean baseball?
What did I say?
Say basketball.
I did not say basketball.
Yeah, I think you said basketball. But you know what? Funny enough, basketball is becoming pretty huge actually now in Puerto Rico as a secondary, which is kind of goes hand in hand. Leagues have popped up and everything.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. A lot of Puerto Ricans and Puerto Rico has really embraced basketball at a whole new level, which even I was like, really, guys? I thought they were primarily all my height, 5'6", 5'7", but apparently we have some tall people.
Get right on out of town.
Yeah. But yes, you're right. Absolutely. Baseball in Puerto Rico is like hockey in Canada, 100%.
Yeah, I think that Canadians are born with skates on, I think. Which sounds really rough for mom, but that's what I'm understanding.
Yeah.
Sevier, your dad was in the military. What'd your mom do?
She had my brother and my sister. She became more and more of a stay-at-home mom to take care of the bunch of rascals. And my brother and I could be difficult. We get into a lot of stuff. So she's like, I think they need eyeballs from mom, not a stranger. But also she had a corporate job and worked in the corporate world for a while.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So what did you want to be when you grew up? And there's a reason I'm asking.
100% a baseball player. That's it. So that's what I wanted to be. I didn't even think of anything else. I actually didn't probably imagine anything else being even a possibility or a thought. It was baseball.
So how old were you when you realized that that was not going to happen?
Well, interesting enough. So I moved, got to the States, went to junior high. I didn't understand the rules. Here in the States, you have like club leagues and other elements that would prepare you for varsity baseball and other things like that, right? That kind of put you in the spotlight for the major leagues, so to speak, right? It's almost like a career path that you have to take.
Kind of like how football has the Pee Wee League where they have the little kid football, and it's like that, but with baseball.
Exactly. So and now you obviously, there's like the, Little League's World Series, which is kind of a life. So I tried out. I didn't even make JV baseball in high school, which was extremely shocking for me. And even a lot of friends, they were like, I don't understand. You can bat left and right. You run faster than everybody. We don't understand why you didn't make the team. So I was like, whatever. It was a little heartbreaking. But from there, I ended up having to fill that first period because it was baseball. And I was like, I am not taking another class that's going to give me homework. So
yeah, why take another class where you're going to have a grade?
Exactly. I was like, absolutely not. So what was available was theater.
Interesting.
And so that's what I jumped into. I thought it was going to be nice and easy and smooth. And I got in, and I remember the kids weren't really taking it seriously. They were pretty much taking it the way I was, kind of like, I'm just here to kill time. And I remember the teacher put us on stage to read some lines from a play, and each person had to say a couple of lines. He wanted us to feel the resonance of the theater and the stage. And I think the second I got on that stage, I was instantly like, oh yeah, this is it.
Nice. When I was a kid, I had been in plays a couple of times, second grade, whatever. But then I think it was 7th or 8th grade when I got to pick electives. I picked theater arts, and I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be this guy. I was cast as the lead. I was Santa Claus, and we rehearsed and we practiced and we did the whole thing for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then it was time to do the play. And first we were going to do the play in front of the entire school. And then later that night, we were going to do the play in front of the parents.
Okay.
For me, that was second period. So when it came time, I was so nervous and scared that I purposefully missed the bus.
Oh,
rode my bicycle past the school to the local supermarket. And I just rearranged the cans on the shelves until that period was over. And then I went to school.
Wow.
That was the end of my
wow.
That was the end of my theater arts career.
That was the beginning and the end.
Yes. So how did you deal with that kind of stage fright?
I got to say a little better than that, but not by much. It doesn't go away. The way I dealt with it, I think my dad taught me this a lot, was like, you just jump in, you just go. Even if you poop the bed, you jumped in, you go for it, you do it. And that's that. it's worse if you don't try, because then you're going to just regret that for however long that lasts. And I think that's always been my approach, is just like, well, it's not going to kill me. So, what's the worst that could happen? I'll probably get made fun of or laughed at or whatever. And it's like, I can handle that.
So you took that class. Apparently you fell in love with that business.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because, ladies and gentlemen, Sevier is a producer and an actor. He has produced, I think, over 26 films. Am I right?
I've personally produced 12 and been involved in about 26 projects, including TV and other elements. Yeah, across the board. Yeah.
So you lived in Texas all the way until you went to California. Am I correct in assuming that the reason you went to California was to pursue a career in film and television?
That is correct. Yes. And it was interesting. I wasn't sure. I had finished college, which was a performing arts school in Dallas, North Dallas, the Conservatory for the Performing Arts, tiny little school. And I had graduated from that. And I really was thinking New York or LA. Broke, had no clue how I was even going to get there. I was applying to schools like UCLA and USC and things like that, and just looking. And a buddy called from college. He's like, I just want to say, it was great getting to know you. I'm moving to Los Angeles, California. Take care. And I said, I want to come with you. And he's like, what? I was like, I want to come with you. And he's like, okay, well, you can bring whatever fits in my car that's not already packed with my stuff. And that was it. I packed my clothes, a guitar, which I didn't know how to play, and then my old black and white headshots. And that was it.
So what was he going to California for?
Same thing. He was going for acting. And so I was like, let's do it. And so we went cross country with him down to Los Angeles. And, he ended up meeting a great girl probably within 3 months of us being there. And then he moved back.
Whoa.
It was a lot harder than we had anticipated. And we didn't know anything. We're like early 20s. We didn't know what we were thinking, right? But it was overwhelming for me, at least. I speak for myself. Growing up, at least in Texas, and I was working over there. It was like a career, right? Like you did it as an actor, and this is what you did for work. When I came to Los Angeles, I realized that there were two elements. There was a career in acting in the entertainment industry, and then there was a lifestyle of the entertainment industry.
What do you mean?
Well, out here, it's like you have the nightclubs, you have the bars, you have the restaurants, and where are you going to go hang out, and who you hanging out with, and who knows who. And there's a lifestyle that's different from committing to the craft and working and being focused. I noticed there was a lot more people saying that there were actors and producers and writers and directors and models and whatnot that were out almost every night. Because the concept was, you got to be seen, you got to be heard. And I realized, to me, it was it's not adding up. It doesn't make sense. People would hold on to these stories of the Pamela Andersons or Courtney Coxes or certain people or whomever, of just people that get picked out, at Starbucks. And those are 1 in 1,000, if that, even more. Everybody else just works for it consistently.
And treats it like a job.
Yeah, 100%. Because it is a job. It's show business.
It is the business of show. So you went there to become an actor or just to get into the business?
So I came out here to get into acting, and that's what I was doing and been doing. And it was classes and everything. Since I was 16 years old, it was a divide, right? There was the entertainment industry as a lifestyle, the entertainment industry as a career. When you were making money and you had to take jobs, whether it was catering or bartending or working at a restaurant, that almost had its own subculture. And then I realized, you know what? I don't think this is going to help me. I at least want to be in areas that are going to still be where I want to be in, right? So I wanted to work in other areas of the entertainment industry because at least I'm around professionals and I can still grow and learn and be part of the group, so to speak.
So how did you find it trying to break into the business? I know that when you get to LA, there's so many things you have to do. You have to find representation, you have to find management, an agent, all that other stuff. And usually people start with commercial talent and commercials and things like that. Is that how you started as well?
Yeah, I started with class. So I could kind of get a sense of the acting community or the group here. And then from there, I ended up getting a commercial agent. And then I think I booked my very first Coca-Cola commercial and kind of started that way and worked my way up.
Awesome. I know that it was harder than you thought, but at any point, did you think of giving up and just going back to Dallas?
Tricky question. No, because I don't think it's in my nature. I'm actually a very tenacious person. But listen, I would be lying if I said I didn't have a lot of crying in the shower moments and kind of questioning what's happening and what am I not doing correctly. And before I started to realize there's so many factors sometimes that are unbelievable. And I still to this day hear stories where someone has it feel like the golden path is laid out for them. It could feel like that. You never know everyone's individual stories and what they've had to go through, et cetera. Versus mine, I was like, oh, why does it seem like such a grind? But yeah, it was times where it was tough. And I had those thoughts off and on for a very long time. I also liked California. I liked the environment. Felt that I was growing as a person. I felt faster than in other environments. I was encountering people from around the world more and different cultures and nationalities and things like that helped.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think that self-doubt is probably ingredient number one before you're even allowed to get into the entertainment industry. So good job for having all that self-doubt at the beginning.
I just have slight PTSD at times. That's all. Which, by the way, I still do. Funny enough, I was just talking to my producing partner. We're working on this project that we're doing. And I still have the same feeling, whether it's an audition that I get from my managers or a job as a producer or a line producer or whatever. I still have that window at the very beginning of doubt. And it's like, oh my God, am I going to be able to do this? And you don't think about the zillion times you've done it before. It's like every single time you want to just vomit.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
So I ran into previous guest of the show, Chris Gronkowski, the other day, and it went a little something like this.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Chris. Hey, you know what sucks? When I get done with my workout at the gym, my protein shake's not cold anymore, man. It's room temperature.
Weird. I haven't run into you at the gym lately.
Busted. Okay, truth be told, I don't work out, but I do get thirsty after a long day of podcasting. I just can't seem to keep my cocktails cold.
You should use an ice shaker.
What's an ice shaker?
The ice shaker is a double-wall, vacuum-insulated stainless steel shaker bottle with a patented twist and agitator that breaks up the protein powders.
So you're saying I should switch to an ice shaker, take out the agitator so I can fit more ice in the cup and it'll stay cold longer?
Steve, you don't need more ice. The ice shaker is third-party tested and verified to keep your drink cold for 30-plus hours.
Chris, you're a genius. I'll still remove the patented screw and agitator and just add more booze.
I guess technically you could, but if you actually use the ice shaker as a protein drink cup, the agitator breaks up the powder and doesn't bounce around like you're shaking a paint can.
Why are we still talking? Let's party.
Gronk style!
That's right, Streetwalkers. Ice Shaker is the new sponsor at Fascination Street Podcast. Ice Shaker is made from kitchen-grade stainless steel so it doesn't smell all funky after you use it a couple of times like those cheap plastic ones. When I'm out and about doing interviews or partying Gronk style, I use the Fascination Street Podcast Edition 26-ounce Flex Ice Shaker cup, and it keeps my drink cold until the sun comes up. You saw Ice Shaker on Shark Tank. All 5 sharks made an offer with Mark Cuban and Alex Rodriguez closing the deal. Now you can get a deal too. Order your own 26-ounce Flex Cup right now at iceshaker.com and use the promo code FSP for $5 off your first order. Once again, that's iceshaker.com, promo code FSP, as in Fascination Street Pod, for $5 off your first order. That's iceshaker.com, promo code FSP.
Let's get back into it.
So you wear several different hats. You still are an actor. You still go out for auditions, and yet you're a producer. You're many different kinds of producer, which we're going to get into later. Mm-hmm. How difficult is it to switch hats? For example, let's just say tomorrow you get a call to go read for How I Met Your Father, right? Yeah. So you're going to go read for How I Met Your Father. It's just a small part. But you as a producer, you've got 6 projects in the works. So how do you switch hats from I'm busy with these 6 projects that I'm producing and I'm going to go read for this one-off part? Like, how do you change that mindset?
It's interesting. I think the one thing that I have going on that end is that I've been doing it for so long that I can just do it. The first thing, I guess, in that sense, it's like, I go, great, audition to read from here to here, got it. What time do I need to block off to at least deliver something that's not totally terrible, and look to work on that. And then I usually at this point have a producing partner, and she can kind of handle the front depending on what the job is. My wife luckily is a great producer and is awesome. And she's held the fort down before, where I've had to go across town to go do a couple of things like audition wise. And then she's holding the fort down and I come in. It's almost like, WWE, you just tag in.
So I guess the answer is a lot of support.
Yes, it is a lot of support. That's also time management and making a decision. Like if I'm going to accept this audition and I'm doing this job where I have these multiple jobs, it's like instant acceptance, which means blocking off the time to make it happen because you can. What I've realized is you can make it happen. It all just starts almost with a mental organization and putting the anchor points there to hold it. Because if not, the mind and the level of time and what people want everything now can kind of overwhelm you and it can crash you.
Yeah, I bet. A long time ago in, I don't know, circuses or vaudeville or whatever, they had what we would call plate spinners, right? And so that would be like these men or women who would literally spin dinner plates on top of a stick sitting on stage. The better they were, the more plates they could spin at the same time without dropping one.
Right.
And I have to imagine that being a producer on so many things all at the same time is much like being a plate spinner. So how do you like spinning all those plates at once? And how difficult is it to focus when you have so many projects in the works?
I love it. First of all, I've realized you have to be someone that functions outside the box, because if you look at it as a normal standard A to B, it's like someone thinks of something, they write it down, that becomes the script. Someone else comes along and says, okay, that is going to cost this much to do. And then you go off and do it. The only certainty you have is yourself and your team. Life and the universe gives you no certainty, as we've come to find out. So that requires a different state of mind to operate at that level. And I think then it's also like time management and life management to prioritize where each project is, how important each step is, where you are in each one, and how much time do you have for each one, right? If it's a couple of phone calls here, a couple of emails here, a budget and a schedule here, a conversation with a director creatively here, talking to agents or managers here, investors here, you kind of start to get a gauge of how much time things are going to take or how much time you have.
Okay. So there's a million different kinds of producers and nobody really knows what the word producer means. There's a producer, there's a line producer, there's an executive producer, there is a produced by, there's co-producer, there is even something called a consulting producer.
Right.
You are all of those. I know we don't have the rest of my life, but can you help me understand the difference? What's a line producer?
Okay, so the line producer is probably, I would say, the most important position because their job is to budget the project.
Okay, so a line producer is who figures out how much this project is going to cost?
They figure out how much it's going to cost. They know the labor laws, or they have access to the labor laws. They have access to tax credit information, union information, rates that change per tier, what it's called, and no one's on the same page across the board with the unions for the most part. They're all in the ballpark, but one tier of rates for one union is different from another union. So understanding all of those elements, understanding even now the big deal is COVID protocols and understanding the CDC rules, OSHA, union rules, the testing rules, like everything. So that's the line producer's hat, and working with the director, with the producers to also deliver the best creative project as possible.
That makes sense. Is there such a thing as a creative producer?
I've kind of seen the creative producer can also be named the producer. I feel like in our industry, a lot of those titles can sometimes be interchangeable, depending on if it's TV and film or online content. But the creative producer is someone that strictly deals with the creativity of the project, meaning maybe talent and script, director, or kind of like that aspect of it, like just the visual aspect of it, which kind of puts them on the side of like one area to focus on. As a producer, it's very simple. A producer gets awarded Best Picture for a reason. You look for the content, you option the content. A producer is supposed to be able to break down the script, budget the script, do a tentative schedule of the script so you know how many days these are going to take to shoot and the elements that you're shooting in, how many pages per day you can do. That then gets passed over to a line producer and or production manager, depending what kind of job you're doing. So the creative producer is one of those roles that I've heard here and there, but not as much as a producer, line producer, co-producer, associate producer, executive producer.
Gotcha. So along the producer lines, like you were saying, they help find the project and the talent and things. Is that why every once in a while you'll see something weird on the Academy Awards, like Brad Pitt won an Oscar for 12 Years a Slave and he wasn't anywhere in it. So he was a producer on it. So is that why you would see something like that? Because maybe he helped bring the project to fruition?
Exactly. That's a perfect example, Plan B Productions. So that's his company. They got the content, which I believe was based on a possible book, which is the IP. And they created the script, they developed it, blah, 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 blah. They hired the writers and were involved with probably the director, also with the financing or distribution aspect of it, or his company. And so, yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. Now, another type of producer is an executive producer. Now, these are weird.
Right.
Because the word executive makes it seem like it's very important, but some things that I've heard make it seem like the executive producer is not that important. For example, there was a TV show a long time ago called Reaper.
Yeah.
And the guy who directed the pilot is named Kevin Smith. The only thing he did was direct the pilot. He didn't have anything to do with the rest of the show for the 3 or 4 seasons that it was on. Yet, every single episode, it said executive producer Kevin Smith. And I know that a lot of people who direct pilots, for some reason, become executive producer for the duration of the show. And I don't understand why. What is that?
My knowledge with television kind of fluctuates in different areas. On a situation like that, you would probably have whoever, once a studio or someone buys the project or buys like the pilot version, they're probably going to want someone of notoriety or someone of credit or knows what they're doing or is established to like maybe execute it, right? The pilot, because if they can execute it correctly versus kind of the creator or someone else, which that's changed a lot as well, it just increases the viability of selling the project. So sometimes, let's say Kevin Smith has 5 other projects and he likes this project, but maybe not enough to live through the duration of the project. Or maybe he can say, hey, I'm going to come and do this for you guys. And to get it, do an amazing job, my name, quality, blah, 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 blah. So you guys can then sell it as a concept. But then in exchange, I want an executive producer credit because you guys probably wouldn't have been able to execute it or whatever to the degree that I could have without me. Hypothetically, I'm just totally spitballing here.
Of course.
Because I don't know the logistics. And there's also times where someone's like, look, cool, I'll help you with that. I'll be an executive producer here. And then I want to have a 2 or 3 picture deal or look with my projects from over here. So the negotiations can kind of vary, but usually the people that come on board for the pilot, whether or not they continue on, it just means they're either on a list that the networks or someone holds as value. And so they'll just go, cool, because this person is of value, we'll give them an executive producer credit. Once it gets picked up and it just goes off and directors switch or the creative team flips.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for that. I appreciate all of those explanations. Those have been vexing me for years.
Yeah.
Of all of those different kinds of producing that you do, which one is your favorite type of producing and why? I ask the hard questions. That's what I do.
Yeah. It's always primarily going to be line producing. It's such a fine line between producing and line producing and what those two entail and how they cross each other, unless they're being specifically done like in television or in film and whatnot. It's also because if I'm part of a project, I just want to make sure that I see what I see and I know what I know on why I took it on. And of course, now my producing partner, I trust her with everything. So I don't really think about it as much. But I think the line producing, there's something about that because you're constantly calculating, right? A budget and a schedule and a project, it's a breathing. Like I always compare it to a child, because even once it's done, that thing will be part of your life forever to some degree. So because it lives and breathes, I like that aspect of it because it's just constantly changing.
You have been in this world, in this industry for decades.
Yikes.
How has streaming changed your business from your perspective?
I've been asked this a few times, actually, and I think it's a personal thing because the content's still being done the same. What is kind of changing is the agreements and levels of pay and certain adjustments and things like that. If you ask someone else, they could say, well, you're not going to movies as much or you're watching more TV. I mean, I guess what I could say honestly on that is the amount of content that is being pumped out, the competitive aspect of it, and what kind of projects are going to be viable because people click, they're quick. Everything's very easily accessible versus when you go to a movie, you turn things off, or the TV shows where you can watch now, Netflix, Amazon, they all have plethoras. And now you have, Apple Plus. So I think that's kind of what's changed. The good side is a lot more opportunity, a lot more people are working, a lot more content globally. And then the flip side is how do you keep your projects from being seen, not being kicked off the shelf, or even being brought back for a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth season?
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Now available wherever you buy audiobooks. Richard Stanley's Up on Game. From robbing banks to ruling his prison gang. Paco got spun out on meth one week and hit the yard with a box cutter in hand. He'd apparently been holding a grudge against some new guy. He was from the same car as Paco, but he seemed to prefer to stick to himself. The quiet new guy was in his late 50s and sported dark brown hair and a handlebar mustache. For whatever reason, Paco decided to allegedly target this obscure and solitary member of his car. They say the man lay there on his bunk, reading a book, when Paco came into the building. He made his way toward the man's bunk in meth-fueled haste. With his box cutter gripped in his right hand and meth making most of his decisions, at that point, Paco lunged into the man's bunk and began slicing away. And slicing and slicing. Defensive wounds were dug into his forearms, and foot-long gashes were added to the quiet man's ribcage before Paco jumped off. Paco had sliced himself on his own left forearm during all the mayhem of his surprise visit with Mr. Obscure. Paco proceeded to haul ass out of there and headed back to his building. Delve into the true life story of Richard Stanley. Up on Game, from robbing banks to stacking Bitcoin. And the sequel, Up on Game, When I Ruled the World. Now available wherever you get audiobooks.
Let's get back into it.
Funny enough, I started rewatching Seinfeld all over again.
My wife and I just started rewatching that, I think a month and a half ago, and we're on season 6 or something. And we're blown away every single night. First of all, we're like, how did they get away with this? And then also we're like, oh, hey, there's that person from that other thing. And there's that other person. And again, how did they get away with this? And stuff like that. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. That's right. But that's exactly that. So I think watching it, it's still fantastic and mind blowing. And I have the same realizations as you. Oh my God, this person was here. Whoa.
I just saw Patton Oswalt last night. I was like, holy shit, that's Patton Oswalt.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
And so, and one of the thoughts I actually had was like, wow, these sitcoms were 22 episodes and they lasted. You had a viable chance of going 3, 4, 5 seasons.
If you got past the first one.
But even then, if you notice, actually, I was just watching the documentary and even watching the Friends reunion and even Seinfeld and Larry David talking about Seinfeld. Those shows probably wouldn't have made it today.
Oh, no, because we don't give time to understand what's going on.
Not at all. First seasons, they weren't popping off the charts. Another show that's one of my favorite genius, groundbreaking shows was Arrested Development, which was way ahead of its time. So could you imagine now? I mean, now that one would probably have a fighting chance just because of where society is and certain things. But that's the difference too. The fighting chance to like let it breathe and see what the creatives can come up with and the actors start to mesh. One of my very first things that I did when I moved to Los Angeles, I was lucky enough to go to a live taping of Seinfeld.
Holy moly. Wait,
yeah.
In Los Angeles?
And
wait, no, hold on. That was in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
They didn't film that in New York?
No, that was in Los Angeles.
Get the hell out of here.
100% in Los Angeles.
Wow.
So I remember watching, and I couldn't really tell you what season it was definitely past 1 or 2 or whatnot. It was starting to get the height of Seinfeld. But even live, their chemistry was mind-blowing.
Really?
Between the takes and being different and laughing, but you get that from repetition and getting to live with something, that I can't say that is really allowed nowadays, or you have the room for that as much.
Getting to live in the character and let the character grow.
Yeah, exactly. And even the chemistry with your fellow castmates and the crew, it makes a huge difference. But I'm never going to forget that. Speaking of doubt or feeling, I was like, I don't know. I don't even know if I'm at that. Like, that's something else. It was phenomenal. But yeah, all of that is, I think, the difference. And it's the new world, new landscape.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that, yes, all of this streaming and all of these platforms that are everywhere makes it easier to get things made, sort of. But also because there's so much content and so many places to put it, that makes it less prosperous when you finally do sell a project, if that makes any sense, right?
Yeah.
There's so many projects, and then now there's less money for everything. Like I was talking to a guy who he was making things for, I don't know, HBO. And then when things kind of switched over and he started making things for like Amazon, that pay went down a lot.
Yeah. Yes. Amazon, for example, from my very minute understanding of them, they're kind of growing substantially and their content is increasing in the value dramatically. I think they were one of the later ones to kind of match the whole Apple Plus and Hulu and all those elements. So their content and everything was very pick and choose. Now it's running and the quality's there versus, the HBOs that have been around forever, the networks at that level.
I think it was last week on one of the episodes we were watching, Jeremy Piven was in this episode where he was playing George, I guess. And one of the people who came in to audition for the role of Elaine was Mariska Hargitay.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I paused it and I said to my wife, oh my gosh, do you know who that is? And she goes, holy shit, is that Mariska Hargitay? And I go, yeah. She goes, oh my God, that's amazing. Because this was before she was anybody.
Yeah, that's true.
And on that episode, she didn't even get the role.
That's amazing. And I guess for Seinfeld was for so long. So I want to preface with, from my understanding, when I went to go see it, it was here in Los Angeles, the studios, it was at CBS Radford, I believe. Yes, it was done here. I just remember because one of their things was they used to go to Jerry's Deli that was in Studio City to go after their shows or after shooting to go hang out. But if it got switched along the line back to New York or whatnot, I would not know.
I was totally, just because, it's based in New York and there's a bunch of exterior New York stuff. I was not questioning you at all. I was just surprised. Yeah. Let's talk about some of the stuff that you've done super recently and maybe even some of the stuff you have coming up.
Okay.
I know that I think it was last year, 2021, you produced a film called Karen.
Yeah.
Starring Taryn Manning.
Yes.
Taryn Manning, for everybody listening, is Pennsatucky from Orange is the New Black. Can you talk about that film? Is it out yet?
Yeah, that film is out. It had a limited theatrical release. It then went to BET, and then it's going international, and we'll start kind of steamrolling everywhere from now on.
Netflix, Amazon, all that stuff. It's going to be everywhere.
It was on iTunes for sure, because I remember screen grabbing it. It was one of the top 10 independent films.
Congratulations.
Thank you, which was nice.
What can you tell me about that film? Is it about what we think it's about?
It's about what we think it's about.
It's a Karen story.
It's a Karen story. And one of my very dear friends and longtime friends, since we were both employees at the House of Blues back in the day, he's now very big established producer, blah, blah, blah,
And that person is Dan Aykroyd. No,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Dan Aykroyd. No, but we used to hang out with him a lot, interesting enough. He called me, he said, hey, we have this film in Atlanta. And it was interesting because the director, I had known him for doing comedy. And so I heard Karen, and I was like, oh, this is probably going to be like some kind of comedy or something light or not as serious, and maybe a twist on the whole situation. And I was so busy starting it because we were in the middle of COVID. The election was happening. We're shooting in Atlanta, and there was a lot going on during the ending of 2020, beginning of 2021. From that Thanksgiving through that January, it was just a lot. And finally, she's like, this is not a comedy, right? This is kind of a serious thing. And I was like, oh my God. So then I had a chance to get into the script and read it. And it was just one of those things that I wanted to do it, for the times and what was going on. And I just wanted to just put it out there. Sometimes you can get so caught up in the perspectives of the social media. There's so many elements where everybody's screaming at once about something like that I just thought, something like this with an amazing cast being led by Taryn Manning was something that I really was excited to do.
Kick ass. How did you like working in Atlanta? Were you there when it was cold, or were you there when it was hot, or both?
I was there when it was cold, and some locals had called it Atlanta's bipolar. Not to make fun of anything, but from my experience only was, it would be sunny, and then by the afternoon would be raining. And then an hour later, or 2 hours later, it's freezing, and then it's raining and freezing. And then you have freezing temperatures, which, by the way, I learned what the threshold is on freezing temperatures in Atlanta, because I never knew. I was like, where does that change? Well, it changes when it becomes under 30 degrees and it's raining and things freeze and you get black ice. And I was like, great. It's very beautiful. I got a chance to work with some great people and great producer there. Her name's Autumn Bailey Ford, and she's just awesome. So I got to meet some really great people, and it was great. It was good. It was a good experience.
Sounds like she needs to change her name to Awesome Bailey Ford.
Pretty much.
In 2021, you also had a movie come out called 777. What's that about?
So 777, it's still in the works. We're kind of finalizing everything on that film.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. And that one is actually more kind of faith-based spiritual aspects, that world and the good and the bad, or the redeeming of qualities in self with a little bit of supernatural, so to speak.
How do these projects come to you? Do you find them? Do they find you? How does that happen? For example, the new film called Fascination Street podcast, the film. How does that come to you?
People can just call me or send it via email or something. They like, here's the project.
Okay, so that's a 555.
Yeah, 555. Or now I get them. They come to me. If they're not the kind of stable that my producing partner and I have with collaborating with a few other people or whatever, right? So like as of now, I could say I'm pretty much booked till probably 2023 with projects and things that are what we've been working on and have and are starting. Then you have people that will go, hey, I have this project, or you want to come join my team and work on this project? And depending on what it is, who's involved, the quality, the things like that, then it's decision based on that. If something that I'm working on got pushed back or postponed, there's a gap that we can kind of go play in.
So by now you've been doing this long enough where you have sort of, I don't want to say networks, but you have people who come to you and people who you go to for all of these sorts of things, right?
Yes. And, look, I think one of the things that Robert Townsend always taught us, me being one of the people that we're fortunate enough to kind of learn from him, was that, you never stop learning, you never stop growing. So even with network and things like that, I'm always looking to meet other creative people and collaborate and learn. I learn something new all the time. Every project I can say I've learned something new and different, or something that I could have done differently or looked at differently. So, but yeah, the resources for the most part, I can say that I genuinely have around the world at this point.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't really touch on it, but you've had the opportunity to work with Robert Townsend, Ridley Scott, and Jerry Bruckheimer, among others.
Yeah.
Who did you learn the most from? Who was your biggest teacher?
I would definitely have to say, because of the time I would say Robert Townsend, for multiple reasons, actually. But there was one thing that he did that I've never forgotten. It changed my life forever. And I've actually have told other up and coming filmmakers or actors or whatever that want to get into the business. Because in this business, unless you come right on in, a good portion of us have had to have an alternate job at some point. So one of the things was he had us keep a journal for an entire week. In your journal, you're going to write how long it takes you to drive to and from acting class or driving, sleeping, your other job, how many hours you worked on the other job, how many, auditions you went on, did you work on them, all these things, right? And basically the lesson was we were not doing enough to think that we deserved certain things in life.
Okay.
Like basically after he broke it down, he said, there's enough time in 1 week to work 40 hours at your regular job, 40 hours into your career, 7.5 hours of sleep. Like he broke it down compared to what was in our mind to what was in reality. And so that shattered and it shifted all kinds of things. And I spent the longest amount of time learning how to pitch projects, developing projects, what it takes, how much time you got. He used to time us on pitching.
Oh, really?
Oh, he used to time us. And if you went too long, he'd be like, no, like done. And, that was a fail because you have this amount of time. So there was a lot that went on kind of hands-on that was pretty great.
That sounds amazing. Where was this?
It was here in Los Angeles.
Oh, cool. Was it like a workshop or was it at school?
No, he ended up putting a group together of people and I happened to end up being part of that group. And he kind of took us under his wing and mentored us and kind of divided a few people with projects. He took a few directors, a few writers, actors, and he kind of, put us in these positions of people that if they were interested in producing, it was like, great. So it was almost like an executive assistant-esque position. And we would read the scripts, and we were in charge of maybe overseeing 6, but in charge of 3. And I'm never going to forget. Another thing is, we had a night where we felt like we had gotten the money for this movie and it was coming from this person. And literally we were out celebrating. We're like, we are that shit. We're doing big things. And he sent us a text to everyone, like, we got to meet now. And I'm not going to forget, this was like a Friday night, and I'm already out in Hollywood. I'm like, woo, I'm big, woo. We stop what we're doing immediately and we come in and he had said something like, I want to gather you guys together because I want to look you in the face. When I say this, you guys weren't prepared. You guys didn't do your job. We lost the money. Have a good night. Literally, that's how it went. It must have been 10 minutes. It was profound. Like, I'm surprised people didn't walk into traffic. It was just one of those things where you're just like, what just happened? But it was such a huge, again, learning lesson. Like, you didn't work hard enough. You didn't stay humble. Your priorities were in the wrong direction.
Was that true? Was he messing with you or did y'all really lose?
No, that was true. 100% true. Without a shadow of a doubt, 100% true. He said, we didn't present certain things correctly. We didn't do our homework correctly. Because his whole thing was, I'm not doing your job for you. I'm going to provide the opportunities. It's up to you to make it happen. I'm not going to do it for you. And, we just collectively didn't do a good enough job.
What'd you learn from that experience?
Stay humble. Stay humble and work hard. Also, like, why are you doing this? If you're doing it for the glitz and glamour and fame, and that's the priority, good luck. Because it's a job and people expect things from you. There was another thing that he had mentioned. He's like, you have people that would like say, oh, I'll put you in this movie or I'll do this and whatever. He's like, look, if you think you're going to just put your friends in a movie, when someone gives you $1, $2, $3, $4 million, you're sadly mistaken. Like, that's a job. You got to find out what's the right talent and their bankability or the pre-sales or whatever the world wants to give you for that, and how to make it happen. It's a 15 hours, 16, 17, 18 hour days job. It's not just you. People count on you. People depend on you. Their livelihood, their safety. It really put things into perspective. And it was almost perfect because it was like, what are you doing out on a Friday night celebrating something that is not even closed or complete, that you could be fine-tuning and finalizing? Funny enough, that's another thing I do nowadays. Now I can tell you I have all these projects lined up or this is what's going on. I don't really do that anymore. And I don't celebrate or say anything about anything actually now until it's wrapped.
Really? Yeah. So you crossed that finish line. It's not over. Huh?
100%. Never.
Wow.
I learned my lesson.
Wow, lesson learned. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sevier, I feel like I could talk to you about this stuff forever, but I think we're running up against it here.
Yeah.
Can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
They can easily find me on Instagram at Sevier Crespo, and they can find me on Instagram as well at Peanut Gallery Group. That's where I'm hanging out. Same thing with Twitter, but Instagram is kind of my playground.
And what is the name of your production company?
Peanut Gallery Group.
Okay, now Peanut Gallery Group, is there a .com?
Yes, sorry, peanutgallerygroup.com. That's correct.
Okay, cool. So people can go check out whatever's there.
Yeah, whatever's there, work. Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know how many people still even have websites, but I think I still have a SevierCrespo.com.
Oh, okay.
That kind of has all the podcasts. This will be on there. It has news. It has revolving kind of what's happening now, so to speak.
Oh, fantastic. And that phone number for people to pitch you ideas is 555. Sevier, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day and your hectic schedule, producing everything all the time, to hang out and let us get to know you a little bit better, man. I appreciate it. I had a good time.
Of course. Thank you so much. Till next time.
Yes, sir. You have a great rest of your week. And thanks again, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2001 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jack's Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend. Subscribe and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.